15,000 years ago, the fire was the only thing standing between your family and the darkness. Every night, that small circle of light kept countless dangers just far enough away. Lions wandered beyond the trees. Hyenas laughed somewhere in the distance. Wolves drifted silently through the shadows, following scents carried by the wind. You had learned to fear those glowing eyes, and they had learned to fear your fire. Then one night, something happened that shouldn't have happened. A lone wolf stepped closer, not charging, not growling, not hunting, just watching. You tightened your grip on your spear. The wolf stared back. For a long moment, neither of you moved. Then, instead of attacking, the wolf lowered its head toward a discarded bone lying just beyond the firelight. It grabbed the bone, stepped backward, and disappeared into the darkness. That tiny moment may have changed the future of both species forever. Today, millions of dogs sleep peacefully beside human beds. They greet us at the door, protect our families, comfort us when we're lonely, and somehow seem to understand emotions without a single spoken word. It's difficult to imagine that every one of them descended from one of nature's most successful predators. Even harder to imagine is this: humans probably never set out to create dogs at all. The real story is stranger, because this wasn't the story of humans conquering wolves. It was the story of two competing predators accidentally changing each other until neither species could ever become what it once was again. So how did one of the most feared hunters on Earth become humanity's oldest friend? The answer isn't hidden inside a kennel. It begins beside a forgotten Stone Age campfire. Most people think they already know this story. Some brave prehistoric hunter finds a litter of wolf pups. He carries them home, feeds them, raises them, and little by little, those wolves become dogs. It's a wonderful story. It's also almost certainly wrong. Modern genetics tells us that every dog alive today belongs to the same species complex as the gray wolf: a Chihuahua, a Labrador, a Siberian Husky, a German Shepherd. Despite looking completely different, they're all part of the same remarkable evolutionary family. That alone is astonishing, but it creates an even bigger mystery. If dogs are simply modified wolves, why don't we see people domesticating wolves today? After all, humans have far better technology now. We understand animal behavior. We have veterinarians, modern medicine, generations of knowledge. Surely it should be easier now than it was 15,000 years ago. Yet wildlife experts consistently warn against trying to raise wolves as pets. Even wolves raised by humans from birth usually remain fundamentally different from domestic dogs. They form stronger territorial instincts. They're less interested in human approval. They're more independent. And as they mature, many become unpredictable in ways even experienced handlers struggle to manage. This isn't because wolves are evil. It's because they're still perfectly adapted to being wolves. They evolved to survive without us. That simple fact creates a problem for the old story. If modern humans with all our knowledge can't simply turn wolves into dogs by raising them, how could small groups of Stone Age hunters have accomplished something even more extraordinary? Something doesn't fit. For decades, archaeologists searched for answers in ancient campsites. Geneticists compared thousands of DNA samples from wolves and dogs. Paleontologists uncovered ancient skeletons buried beneath layers of forgotten earth. Instead of solving the mystery, the evidence only became stranger. Scientists still debate exactly when dogs first appeared. Some estimates suggest around 15,000 years ago. Others argue it may have started more than 30,000 years earlier. Ancient DNA is incomplete. Bones rarely tell the entire story. Evolution almost never leaves perfect records behind. But despite the disagreements, researchers agree on one extraordinary fact. Dogs were almost certainly the first animal ever domesticated. Long before sheep, long before goats, long before cattle, long before horses pulled wagons across open plains, humans and dogs had already begun building something unique. And they did it while humanity was still living entirely as hunter-gatherers. That detail matters, because agriculture hadn't even been invented yet. There were no villages, no farms, no fences, no permanent settlements. Every group moved constantly, following migrating animals and changing seasons. Life was uncertain. Food disappeared quickly. Every decision carried consequences. Under those conditions, raising dangerous predators would have been an enormous risk. Food was too valuable to waste. Every extra mouth meant more hunting, more danger, more competition. Keeping wolf cubs simply because they looked cute would have made no evolutionary sense. So if humans weren't deliberately collecting wolves, where did the first dogs actually come from? The answer may have started with something almost every hunter hates: garbage. Imagine returning to camp after a successful hunt. Most of the animal becomes food. But not everything can be eaten. Large bones, damaged organs, bits of hide, pieces carrying very little nutritional value. Over time, those leftovers accumulated around temporary camps, not enough to create enormous trash piles like modern cities, but enough to create something extremely unusual: reliable food, not for humans, for scavengers. Across prehistoric Eurasia, countless animals searched constantly for abandoned carcasses. Foxes, ravens, hyenas, and wolves. Most wolves avoided humans completely. For good reason. Humans carried fire. They threw spears. They hunted cooperatively. Getting too close often meant death. But evolution never changes entire species at once. Within every population, individuals behave differently. Some wolves were bolder. Some were more curious. Some tolerated greater risks if food seemed worth it. One unusually calm wolf might approach within 100 yards of a campsite. Another might creep a little closer. Most still fled at the first sign of movement. But every now and then, one stayed, not because it trusted humans, because hunger outweighed fear. Those few individuals gained access to food that other wolves ignored. They found discarded bones rich in marrow, scraps left behind after successful hunts, reliable calories appearing again and again wherever humans camped. And without realizing it, those wolves had just stepped onto a completely different evolutionary path. If you're enjoying uncovering these forgotten chapters of human history, consider subscribing to Human Stories. Every week, we explore the hidden evolutionary decisions that shape the world you live in today, from the origins of human behavior to the surprising partnerships that changed civilization forever. But here's where this story becomes even more fascinating. Those wolves weren't changing because humans were selecting them. They were changing because nature was. And the next step in that transformation would reveal one of the strangest evolutionary experiments ever witnessed. Natural selection works in a surprisingly simple way. It doesn't reward the strongest. It rewards whatever survives long enough to leave offspring. For those wolves lingering near human camps, survival no longer depended only on chasing deer across frozen plains. Now there was another option. Stay just close enough to benefit. Stay just far enough to avoid being killed. Generation after generation, the wolves least terrified of humans gained a small advantage. They found food more consistently. They survived harsh winters more often. They raised more pups. Those pups inherited not only their parents' genes, but also many of the same behavioral tendencies. Nobody planned it. Nobody bred them. Evolution quietly did the work. And then something extraordinary happened. As scientists would eventually discover thousands of years later, changing behavior can also change bodies. In the 1950s, Russian geneticist Dmitry Belyaev began an experiment that seemed almost too simple. He raised silver foxes. Each generation, he selected only one trait. Not size, not strength, not color, only friendliness toward humans. The calmest foxes became parents. The fearful ones did not. At first, almost nothing changed. Then, within only a few generations, the foxes began transforming in ways nobody expected. Their ears became floppy. Their tails curled. White patches appeared in their fur. Their faces became shorter. They barked more often. They wagged their tails. Some even sought human attention the way modern dogs do. Belyaev had never selected for floppy ears. He had never selected for curly tails. He had never selected for spotted coats. Those traits appeared automatically. Today, scientists call this collection of changes domestication syndrome. When natural selection favors reduced fear and aggression, many unexpected physical changes often appear alongside those behavioral shifts. It was one of the strongest clues researchers had ever found. Perhaps ancient wolves experienced something similar, not because humans were carefully breeding them, but because evolution kept favoring the calmest individuals living near people. Yet this still leaves one enormous question. If wolves were changing, what were humans doing? For thousands of years, the popular story focused entirely on dogs. Humans were simply the trainers. But evolution almost never changes only one side of a relationship. The wolves approaching human camps were learning something. Humans were learning something too. Imagine seeing the same calm wolf appear outside camp night after night. It doesn't attack. It doesn't steal children. It waits. It eats leftovers. Then it disappears before sunrise. Eventually, people stop throwing spears. Not because they love the wolf, because it no longer seems worth wasting a weapon. That tiny decision changes everything. Fear slowly becomes tolerance. Tolerance slowly becomes familiarity. Familiarity creates opportunity. One night, the wolf barks. Everyone wakes. Moments later, Another predator appears from the darkness. The wolf wasn't hunting the humans. It had accidentally warned them. Perhaps another wolf follows hunters from a distance. It notices injured deer before people do. Perhaps its incredible sense of smell helps locate wounded prey that otherwise would have escaped. Nobody planned a partnership, but useful relationships have a remarkable way of surviving. The wolves that stayed near humans ate better. The humans living near wolves survived better. Both species quietly benefited, and once that happened, natural selection began acting on both sides. Humans started tolerating the calmest wolves. The calmest wolves kept approaching humans. Each generation strengthened the relationship just a little more. Neither species understood what was happening. Evolution didn't need them to. It only needed the partnership to work. Over thousands of years, another astonishing change appeared. Dogs became unusually skilled at reading people. Point toward an object. Most dogs immediately follow your finger. Raise your eyebrows. Many dogs respond. Change your tone of voice. They notice instantly. Adult wolves, even those raised by humans, rarely perform these behaviors as naturally. Modern dogs evolved to pay extraordinary attention to us. They watch our faces, our hands, our eyes, even our emotion. Researchers have discovered that when dogs and humans hold eye contact, both brains release oxytocin, the same bonding hormone involved between parents and infants. In other words, the relationship became biological. Evolution rewired two completely different predators to cooperate emotionally. Then came another remarkable discovery. Dogs possess a tiny facial muscle that wolves either lack or barely use. It lifts the inner eyebrow, creating what we now call puppy dog eyes. That expression activates powerful nurturing responses in humans. It makes dogs appear helpless, trustworthy, almost childlike. No wolf consciously evolved that face. No human consciously selected it. But over thousands of years, individuals that strengthened emotional bonds survived better beside people. The partnership became stronger, then stronger still. Eventually, humans stopped being passive participants. Once people realized these animals could help hunt, guard camps, track scents, and warn of approaching danger, they began favoring individuals with useful traits. This marked a new chapter. Natural selection slowly blended with intentional selection. Some dogs became exceptional hunters. Others guarded camps. Others followed herds. Much later, humans would create hundreds of modern breeds. But that explosion of diversity came long after the hardest part was already finished. The greatest evolutionary leap had already happened. Not when wolves became smaller, not when their ears became floppy, not even when humans started breeding them. The real transformation happened much earlier. It happened the moment two rival predators stopped seeing each other only as enemies. And here's the twist hidden beneath this entire story. Humans didn't really create dogs. Not in the way we usually imagine. Dogs didn't simply domesticate themselves either. The truth lies somewhere between those two ideas. Over thousands of years, wolves reshaped human survival. Humans reshaped wolf evolution. Each species became part of the other's environment. Each became one of the other's most powerful selective pressures. They evolved together. One hungry wolf walked toward a campfire looking for scraps. It had no idea it was taking the first step toward becoming something the natural world had never seen before. Nor did the humans sitting beside that fire. Yet every cautious approach, every shared hunt, every warning bark, every generation that trusted just a little more, slowly created the oldest partnership in human history. Today, millions of dogs still race to greet us at the door. They sleep beside our children, protect our families, comfort us when we grieve, celebrate when we return home. Not because humans conquered wolves, but because evolution quietly transformed two competing predators into something far more extraordinary. Family, thank you for watching Human Stories. If this story changed the way you see the oldest friendship in human history, we'd love to have you join us on the next journey. Until next time, keep wondering how the smallest decisions in the distant past still shape the lives we share today.